So one of the great things about fly fishing in South Dakota is that you can do it anywhere for anything. My name is Buddy Seiner. I'm the aquatic education contractor for the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. Today we're going to talk about basic fly casting techniques that will make you a better fly caster. Today we have Charlie Hull with us. Charlie, thanks for joining us to learn how to cast a fly rod better. The basics of fly casting are really simple, and it all comes down to fundamentals. Just like anything else with sports, a lot of athletic players, fundamentals is the key to becoming a better player, and it's the key to becoming a better fly caster. When you look at Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, their basketball shots are very different, even though they're both really great shooters. The one thing they share in common are the fundamentals. So with fly casting, we're going to start out the rod. A fly rod is a little bit different than a spinning rod in that it's a lot longer than a conventional spinning rod. And fly rods are designed to cast fly line, which is weighted. It does not cast the lure itself like you do with spinning rods. So when we come back and come forward with this fly rod, we're actually pulling the fly line and then we're pushing the fly line, and that line carries our lure or our fly, which is usually unweighted or really lightweight. So to start, the first basic principle with casting a fly rod is to shake hands with the rod. So when you go in here, you want to face me, Charlie. I'm going to hand you the rod and just shake hands with that cork. Thumb on top. Yep, put your thumb on top, and that's the basic grip for fly fishing. There are a number of different grips you can play with. Once you get better at fly fishing and casting a fly rod, but this is the basic one. Number two, we want to have a good sturdy grip with our arm. So the rod is an extension of our arm. So when we lift our arm up, our rod is going to go with it. And we want our wrist to stay nice and stiff. We want our arm to stay nice and stiff. So when we lift our arm up, just like this, we're going to keep a nice straight wrist, and then we're going to come forward with a nice straight wrist. Okay? So one big problem that fly casters make when they come back is they break their wrist, and that brings the fly rod back down to the ground. So the line is always going to follow the rod tip. So when I break my wrist like that, it gets really low and my fly line goes into the ground. Do you see how that works? So instead, we want to keep a nice straight wrist, and we want to lift our arm up. We want to keep our rod tip really high in the air. Do you see how that works? And then we're just going to come forward. Okay? Up, down. Nice and smooth. Up, down. Another basic principle with fly casting is we want to let this rod do all the work. It's all about physics. And one thing that I like to tell people who are just starting, it's just like loading a spoon with a pile of mashed potatoes and flinging it at your dad. You pull that spoon back with the mashed potatoes and you let go, and it's going to shoot those mashed potatoes back. So when we let the rod do the work, we bring the line back and let that rod load and come forward. It's a nice, easy, smooth motion. Another huge mistake that fly anglers make when they're trying to become a better caster is they go way too fast, and they try and do this really quick timing with their cast, and it really creates a whipping sound in the back, and you're going to crack your fly off. If you hear that whipping sound at the back, you know that you haven't let it come back and unfurl on the back cast. So we have to really slow down our cast, bring it up, and slow it down, and then come forward. So when we're fly casting, I always have students say to themselves, slow, accelerate, stop. And let me demonstrate really quick. So when we pull it off the water, we're going to go slow, we're going to accelerate, and we're going to stop, and then we're going to slow, accelerate, stop. Slow, accelerate, stop. Slow, accelerate, stop. Here, let's fix your line real quick, Charlie. It's got it wrapped around. Let's put it around your end here. Okay, there you go. And you can take a little bit of line out. You always want to have your hand on the cork of your rod, and then you always want to have the fly line in your other hand, in your opposing hand. They're always going to work in tandem. So you're always going to have a hold of your fly line when you're casting, and then when you shoot the line out, you're going to let the line slide through your fingers. Okay? So let's get some line out. Let some more line out of your rod, or out of your reel, I'm sorry. Pull some line out of there. And then let's just try casting a little bit. So we're going to pull the line off of the water, and we're going to push it back on. Very good. So, and then just say to yourself when you're casting, slow, accelerate, stop, slow, accelerate, stop. And on the back cast, you know, people always ask, well, how long do I wait on the back cast? Well, it's okay to look back and watch your line when you're casting. You can see the line unfurl behind you, and then come forward with it when it straightens out. One technique that I use is I have a little mantra. When I come with my back cast, I say, I love South Dakota, and then I come forward. I love South Dakota. I'm waiting just long enough to let that line unfurl behind me, the rod loads up, and then I can shoot that line forward. As you let more line out of your fly rod, you're going to have to wait just a little bit longer on your back cast to let that line unfurl and come forward with it. So Charlie, why don't you give us a couple practice casts? So you're going to have the rod in one hand and the fly line in another hand. And you're going to bring it back, slow, accelerate, stop, slow, accelerate, stop. Very good. And then the last tip, becoming a better fly caster, as soon as that fly line hits the water, we drop our tip straight down to the water and transfer our line into our stripping hand. Okay, that's going to allow us to slowly bring that fly line in and present that fly to those fish. And when the rod tip is down, we remove the belly in the line. If there's a big belly in the line, if that fish takes our fly, it's going to take us longer to get connection with the fish. But if we have the fly rod immediately down to the water, there's zero tension in between us and the fish. So as soon as that fish hits and we set the hook, we're going to be hooking into that fish's mouth. It's not going to have any time to throw the hook. So that's the main key. Here, let's get your fly line out of there again. You're okay. Okay, we'll get all that line out. Let's do a couple practice casts. Okay, so get it out there. Good. Okay, rod, let some more line out maybe. Let's see if you can, so let's aim at that tree over there, okay? And let's just try and get it in line with that tree. Slow, accelerate, stop. Move this way a little bit, kiddo, so you're not under that tree. There you go. Try again. Slow, accelerate, stop. And the thing to remember when you're casting a fly rod is you have to create energy to pull this line off the water. So we have to give it a little bit of effort when we're pulling it, and then we have to push it back on because the fly line is weighted. It's kind of heavy when we're doing it, and we got to get that fly out there. Yep, very good. Yep, and then you can let some more line out and lay it back down again. Slow, accelerate, stop. Slow, accelerate, stop. Very good. Keep it nice and high. A lot of people say 10 and 2. And 10 and 2 is really good. This is called false casting. Okay? False casting, the only purpose it serves is to get the fly line out further. And a lot of people try and false cast more than they need to, and usually something bad can happen. So really limit your false cast is another tip for making it easier. All you have to do is pick it up and put it back down again, and the sole purpose of casting is to get that fly out to the fish. The longer your fly is in the water, the more chances you have to catch fish. So the tips, you want to shake hands with the fly rod, keep a nice straight wrist, a nice sturdy arm when you cast. Slow down, slow, accelerate, stop. On your back cast, say, I love South Dakota. Before you come forward, you're pulling the line off the water and you're pushing it onto the water. And the biggest tip to becoming a better fly caster is just getting out and going fishing. Taking your fly rod out on the water, getting some practice in, and catching some fish with your fly rod. The more confidence you build up, the more techniques you're going to have in your toolkit, and the better fly caster you're going to become because of it.